Hello and welcome back. In this session, you'll learn how to manage a work order, for example that's being reported by a tenant, or a routine job like a gas safety certificate. A work order could be added to the property itself or a tenancy. So in this case, we'll be focusing on work orders that relate to a tenancy. Let's go to the work orders tab and we'll add a new work order from the link here. Let's assign this job to a contractor. And we'll select to send a text message to the contractor. Now what's sent is the problem title, the address and the occupant's details. Now the payment method that you choose will affect the accounts in different ways. For now we'll choose method 1 and I'll explain the difference between the two in a moment. Next, let's email a job sheet to the contractor. Alright, let's search for the email-friendly version of the work order template. Now, if it's not found here, you could always refer back to our template library. In our case, let's choose email as the output. Pending work orders could be seen by going to the dashboard. Or if we go to the letting section, the list could also be accessed via the menu here, providing you with more comprehensive functionality. Now once the job's been done, you could change the status here and mark it as complete, awaiting rent. Before marking this job as payable, check to see if there are sufficient funds in the landlord's float or main balance. In other words, the float and main balance that you see here should be green before proceeding to process the transaction here on the right. This will ensure that there are sufficient funds to pay the contractor. So this screen's where you would enter the contractor's invoice and the charges to the landlord or tenant. The top section that we're looking at here is the bill from the contractor to the agency, and the bottom section is the charge that you will apply to the customer's account. Now the two halves that we're looking at here are completely separate transactions, so one will appear in the income section via your profit and loss report, while the other one will appear in your expenses section. Now the landlord will only see the income that you've charged them, they won't see the contractor's bill. So let's complete this transaction and then we'll come back and I'll show you the different options that we have. After selecting the expense account that will appear in your profit and loss report, enter the amount that the contractor has invoiced. Now type the amount that you're charging the client, excluding VAT. Now let's show you how this is going to affect your company accounts. Let's go down to the profit and loss report. And you'll see, based on the method that I showed you, the contractor's expenses will appear down the bottom here, and the charges that you will apply to the customer's account will appear in the income section here. So in this method, the charge to the client minus the contractor's invoice will give you the profits for the job. Now at this point you may be thinking, right, I don't want the contractor's invoices to show up in the profit and loss report because it's not our expense, it's our client's, and we just want to see what we've made on the job. So going back to the work order, let's have a quick recap. Right, method 1. The bill from the contractor is going to be shown as your company expense, and when you're billing the landlord or tenant, that's your company income, so they will both appear in your profit and loss. Now we're going to switch back to the work order that we created earlier. We'll go to edit. And this time we'll choose method number 2, where the contractor's invoice goes against the tenant's or landlord's main account. So this time when we're processing the transaction, we're presented with a completely different screen. If we enter the cost of the job, let's say in this case it's £100, now instead of affecting your profit and loss accounts, what this will do is credit one client's balance and debit the other. So the contractor will appear in credit by £100 and the landlord would appear in debit. Now it's not affected your profit and loss in any way, it's just transferred a balance from one client to the other. Now the system gives you an option to charge a referral fee and apply a deduction to the contractor's account. So let's say for example the job's £100 and the landlord's going to pay £100 for the job, you can actually bill the contractor £10 as a commission. So in our case, the contractor's only going to be given £90, giving us a profit of £10 including VAT. So in addition to charging a referral fee to the contractor, you can charge a transparent admin fee to the landlord. So for example, you can charge 10% for managing the work order. Now let's take a look at what's happened so far. So there's £100 that's been transferred from the landlord to the contractor, and that could be a gross figure regardless of whether it's got VAT or not. Now what the landlord will see on their statement is £100 as a transfer, and then they would see £10 plus or including VAT for the admin fee that you've charged them. So they will see a breakdown of two figures, a transparent admin fee and then a transfer from the landlord to the contractor. And considering that we've also charged an admin fee to the contractor, we've now made £22. And the £22 minus VAT is what's going to appear in your profit and loss. So again, let's go back to the account section. Now if we go into the profit and loss report, we can now see that the work order has only affected the income section here, which is the maintenance charge of £18.33. So if we click to drill down into the transactions, you'll now see a breakdown of our commissions. So £10 was the charge to the landlord. Remember, we charged £10 plus VAT, and then we charged £10 including VAT to the contractor, which was £8.33. Now if we go to the control panel, lettings, then general configuration, you'll find an option here where you're able to set which work order method you prefer by default. Okay, so let's pause for a moment. So far we've created a work order, we've printed or emailed a job sheet, and then we've marked the contractor as payable by choosing the appropriate work order method. What we're going to do now is go back to the accounts and pay the contractor that's appearing in our creditors list. So we're following on from the work order that we created earlier where the contractor was owed £90. So let's select the contractor. The next screen lets us select specific jobs that we're about to pay, and also the option to send a remittance advice slip. Okay, to conclude this tutorial, I'm going to leave you with two snippets of the landlord statement. One that uses method 1, so notice that there's only one charge and it could include VAT if you're VAT registered, so it will show the amount plus VAT. But method 2, notice that the transfer from the landlord to the contractor will not have VAT. In fact, it will never have VAT because the VAT will belong to the contractor. So that's just passed from one client to the other, and you will then see the separate transparent admin fee, which could be the amount plus the VAT.